Okay, this video is going to be about painting. So it's going to involve a lot of stuff that some people may find tedious, I don't know. This is a color that I mixed from golden SoFlat paint to represent the dark brown on the Israeli Camouflage. And what I'm trying to do here is put it on in a kind of lackadaisical manner so that I can get a real good idea what the brush mark situation is going to be. I don't think I've done a very good job of defining brush marks. And since it's important, I'm going to go over it here briefly. Brush marks are not streaks. Brush marks are three-dimensional characteristics of the surface of the paint, because the paint doesn't level itself out as it dries. If it doesn't level out, if it's not self-leveling, then you'll get brush marks, and the brush marks are almost like they're tooled into the surface. It's not something that you can see unless you've got the light on it, like I did just then. Put the light on it, you can see the brush marks initially show up there. But as the paint dries, the brush marks are going to go away. Now, there are a couple of other interesting things about this plastic model kit. The first thing to keep in mind, to notice, is that it's not primed. I don't prime plastic models. I don't understand why this became a thing. I don't know why people do it at all. Baffles me. Number two, you don't notice this because it's not visible, but I can tell you for a fact that this model has not been washed. I didn't put it in a bath. I didn't scrub it. I don't know what the washing is about. Between washing and priming, there's a great deal of work here that you can just forget about. Just skip it. Now, what I'm doing here, the method I'm pursuing, is really pretty simple. I think it's kind of obvious, but I'm going to try to explain it. I am drawing the outline of the colored area, the region, and then I will fill it in. That's it. There's no masking, there's no drawing. I'm not drawing the region's outlines with a pencil or anything like that. I will admit that this is a little bit difficult. I'm not sure how much to admit about this because I don't think it's that difficult. But I'm not certain of that. There are people who can watch someone do a dance step and then mimic it precisely. I can't do that. My life depended on it. So I guess there are people who can't look at a drawing or a photograph and then copy the pattern. That's sad. There's nothing I can do about that, though. I can just show you how I do it. There are 1,000,001 ways to paint this pattern, and especially if you're really challenged in the ability to copy a pattern with a paintbrush, there's masking and spraying. I think that was why it was originally invented, the masking and the spraying. But not everyone is in that boat. There are many people who can do this, and it may be more difficult for some than others. But I'm hoping that by showing this, you can compare your work to what I'm doing, and you can see that if there are flaws in what you are doing, you will see that the same flaws are in what I'm doing. And these flaws are either not important, or they're going to be corrected later on. Another thing you will notice here is that I am painting this pattern despite the fact that there are no other colors present. This is, to me, the only reasonable way to do this. I know it appears to many people to be unreasonable because you've been taught to paint with an airbrush. Airbrush painting has become so dominant that it's impossible to escape it, and it's impossible to escape the methods. But this is how you paint with a brush. You don't paint one color over the other. You paint one color, then you paint the other color next to it. And you may overlap them a tiny bit. But the idea here is not to paint one color the way that you would with a spray can or with an airbrush. The methods just do not translate. Now we're going to jump forward here to where I've already done the green. And I'm going to jump into the sand color. Because that's what we do here. We jump into the sand. It's the joyful days of childhood. Jumping into the sand, discovering treats left there by the neighbor's cat. You can see the what I'm doing here is really kind of rudimentary. I'm not doing any special brushwork. And that brush I'm using is, well, to put it succinctly, it's a bad brush. That's a synthetic brush. Nobody would call that a high-quality brush. It's just a brush. It's barely adequate. And the reason I'm using it is so that we can tell whether the quality of the finished paint job is my work, or is it the brush, or is it the paint. I'm doing everything in my power to make this paint application a little less than optimal. Later on, when I paint the undersurface, I'm going to do a more serious job with that. But this is put on in a kind of a haphazard way because I want to see the result in the paint itself. I want to measure the quality of the paint. Again, you can see that I am putting the paint on in the areas where it goes. The regions where the paint goes are painted individually and separately. They're not painted on top of each other. None of the methods involved in spray painting are used here. I'm using brush painting methods, not spray painting methods. My methods are an attempt to make plastic model kits less toxic in terms of what you actually have to breathe in. I may not be, I don't know if I can help your particular family situation. But in terms of what you breathe, it's going to be less toxic to do it my way. And therefore that kind of eliminates spraying on a big fat coat of spray primer because there's no spray painting allowed. And that's just because in a lot of situations like mine, you can't just go outside all the time or do whatever to spray paint. You can't spray paint indoors. You can't spray paint outside. You can't spray paint. Now, the fact that I'm putting on about 2 coats of each color will give me an opportunity to correct any errors. But as I go along, I'm really just using a sort of, I'm going by eye and by intuition. I'm not trying to match the colors on the, or rather, I'm not trying to match the patterns on the reference. Not trying to match them precisely. I'm trying to match them in general, in an approximate way. And here is not the finished product, but 90% finished. I'm in the middle of decaling this. And you can see I've got a coat of the nice glossy Pledge floor finish, aka Future. You can see, especially on that nose there, that the golden SoFlat has left no three-dimensional marks whatsoever. Basically no brush marks. No evidence that it wasn't sprayed. And of course I've done some stippling. The only place where you're going to see some major brush marks are on the yellow triangles, which I had to use some Tamiya gloss paint, the X8 yellow and the X1 black, to cover up the decal, because the decal was translucent. You could see through it. These decals came from the Hasegawa kit. So basically, these decals were swiped from the Hasegawa kit. Also, you can see the national insignia are different. I have decals from 2 kits and a sheet of Israeli markings. The 2 kits are the Italeri and the Hasegawa kit. And I mixed them together to get a complete set of stencils and so on. Here's the golden SoFlat in the original packaging. It's not exactly glamorous looking, but this is very high quality paint. It's the paint of the future, and I can tell you that it's going to be what I'm going to be using in the future. Until just now, I had never used this paint to paint a plastic model airplane. This is my first attempt. Now, of course, I did a lot of research, a lot of experimenting up until I used this paint. So if you're wondering if I just went into this cold, no, not at all. But this is the first time I've actually done it on a model that I intended to display. Now you may be wondering, why doesn't my model match the drawing there? That illustration comes from a book called Encyclopedia of World Air Power, which I bought, I think, at Walden Books or B. Dalton. I don't know which. Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with them. Why don't those colors match up? They don't match up because for years the Israelis used special filters on their cameras. When they took photographs of the military aircraft, they made sure that they didn't look like the actual aircraft. The filters distorted the colors. And so for years we ended up with models and so on that had the wrong colors because the Israelis deliberately displayed the wrong colors, especially the national insignia. The national insignia should be a nice bright blue. The Israeli Air Force blue, not the insignia blue, US and British insignia blue, that shows up as in a lot of kits. So that's just something we know now. We didn't know then. So there's the model as it is. Going to do some more decaling. Please subscribe. I need to get 500 subscribers for a special event to become a YouTube partner. I also appreciate it if you stop by my Patreon, throw $1 in the kitty, and then you can comment. I won't get mad at you or nothing. You can buy me a cup of coffee. All these links are in the description. And if you want to, learn more about the Israeli Air Force or colors or anything like that, be sure and keep watching this channel. And we will see you all next time.